Hello and welcome back to the WABAN podcast, the movie and TV show podcast where an expert on the subject discusses things with somebody who's just the average viewer. So there you go. I am joined by a guy who has 8 dads.
Well, y'all got their own little stick going. It's hard to keep up sometimes. They have their own little dad language. It's kind of annoying, but I live with it. It's fine.
Yeah. One of them likes foreign films. Likes foreign movies. I mean films. I like...
Yeah, you can't get that wrong. It's very important.
You like foreign movies. Remember in Amelie when I like foreign films?
Is there
not movies?
Is there actually a difference?
No, I don't think so. I feel like there's probably some extreme film snobs
difference,
who are like, well, who say there's a difference, but there's not. I mean, it's I mean, I guess like the only reason they're called films is because they're shot on film. Obviously, but they're not even. Most of them are not even shot on film anymore. So most of it's digital now. So it's like. But they still call them films. That's just kind of stuck.
I just looked it up, and it's some like snobby nitpick stuff. A film attempts to convey or explore something larger than itself. A movie is about giving the audience exactly what they want.
That is not a legit thing. That is not. There's no legit difference. That's like that dad. In her Hollyhock's dad, who is like the foreign film guy, that's what he would say.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah. But yeah, no, there's no difference. I mean, film does sound more prestigious. It sounds more like it's like like when you say film, it sounds more like you're talking about a piece of art. Whereas when you say movie, it sounds like you're just like
entertainment.
Yeah. Like you're talking about a big blockbuster or something. Like, ooh, I'm gonna watch a movie for some fun. Have some fun with the guys and watch a movie.
Yeah, eat some popcorn.
Yeah, right, exactly. But
I'm going to the theater with this big screen.
But realistically, I use both pretty much interchangeably. So
yeah.
But yeah, anyways, so we're talking this week about Bojack Horseman Season 4, continuing our discussion. So, after seeing Season 4, which I would say is probably my favorite season, what are your thoughts?
I can understand why this is your favorite season, and it might be mine so far too.
Right.
Like, I have told you many times, I don't enjoy this show because it's very depressing, but this season wasn't quite as depressing, which is good.
Yeah, it's sort of... It sort of like starts to take like the character in a more positive way, where like things kind of start to look up in a little bit. Like the ending especially isn't as much of a downer ending. It's like
it was actually a positive like upturn on it.
Yeah.
In the last moments.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people say when they watch this season. Like, oh wow, it's like because like I mean, the last season obviously when it ends with like like Sarah Lynn's death and like Bojack like leaves and he's just standing out in the middle of nowhere looking at the horses run, which is a very poignant ending, but it wasn't necessarily a positive one.
Yeah, it was more just like. He barely stopped himself from plummeting off a cliff.
Yeah, exactly.
And, at the end of this one where, he's actually starting up the hill.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, I guess we can get into each individual episode here.
Right.
So to start off, we have See Mr. Peanut Butter Run, which is...
right.
essentially showing, the whole year and a half or whatever that Bojack is gone, showing what's happening with all the other characters. So we don't know where Bojack is this whole time. And it's showing, Mr. Peanut Butter running for governor and everything. And it's framed through like through a lot of kind of narration in a way from Diane, but it's through her calling Bojack, telling him what's been going on,
Right.
which I think is a cool way of like framing it, because it kind of shows like she kept trying to call him, but he never answered, kind of,
Mhm.
which is a good way of kind of showing they have a pretty strong like friendship. Um,
Yeah, that she actively tries to get a hold of him, and even after, you know,
mhm.
no, him not answering for so long.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, I don't really know what to say if there's a lot to say about this episode other than just I mean, it's a really fun, like, it's one of those episodes where there's a lot of it's one of those ridiculous Bojack episodes where it's just a lot of just ridiculous scenarios and stuff. Like, just the governor race for governor is just ridiculous.
Hmm.
Like,
Todd putting a seat on a drone and being like,
right,
I
the
don't think
drone
that's a
throne.
drone anymore. It's like, I think you're getting too stuck up on labels right now.
Which actually is an interesting thing. Todd is worrying a little bit about labels right now too. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a
He doesn't want to label
little
himself
hint.
as asexual, which
Right.
that was what he was in like a technical way.
Right, but at first he doesn't necessarily want to, because he doesn't really know what that means yet. He's
Yeah.
still discovering himself, and figuring that out, which is really interesting. But we can get into that more because there's a specific episode that I think deals with it. There are episodes that deal with it a little bit more.
Yeah. What was it called? Hooray! Todd episode.
Hooray, a Todd episode. Yep, that's like the third one.
Hmm.
But I love in this episode just the ridiculousness of the scenario. You know, the they do like a recall election, or they try to recall the governor.
Hmm.
Who was it? Woodchuck Berkowitz. Um,
Oh, right, because Mr. Peanut Butter lost. So he responded by challenging him to a ski race, which he then lost, except Todd on his drone throne, falling from his drone throne, won, but
Todd
then he
doesn't want to
immediately
be governor,
resigned.
so
And
he
then so
resigns.
he did a re-race
So they have to
where,
do another. So they actually have to do a race or
yeah,
a an actual election. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's insane. And then like the whole thing with Mr. Peanut Butter, like, oh yeah, too bad I don't even know how to ski. What, you challenged him? Then why did you challenge him to a ski race?
Honestly,
I
I
don't
didn't think
know.
I'd get this
I
far.
didn't think I'd even get this far. And they like send him to like ski school, and like the
Mhm.
freaking teacher doesn't even teach him how to ski. Like,
Yeah.
jeez.
He's like, read this book of poetry. Okay. He comes back. Did you read it? Nah. Good. What?
Then he like has him graduate.
Hmm.
It's just like, oh, like,
The secret
too
is,
bad I still don't know anything about skiing.
and as he's turning into a cocoon, the secret is to keep your knees bent.
Ben, who's Ben?
Ben.
Like,
So
Mr.
good.
Mr. Peanut Butter is just such a funny character. I don't know. He's just,
Mhm.
I just love it. Love, love Mr.
Uh,
Peanut Butter shenanigans.
just people with like golden retriever personalities are great
Hmm.
because, like, even if they don't quite know what's going on, at least they're happy, and they're making people around them happy.
Well, that's what he says in this season. He's like, I found out what I'm really good at, making people like me.
Yeah.
Which it actually showed at the opening of the episode, because at the opening it showed how he first got the job to be on the TV show.
Right.
Because he just like walked into a room where there was like an actual serious like actor
Hmm.
who wasn't dealing with the sitcom material very well, and he's just like, he just starts acting all crazy and fun and
Yeah.
likable, and everybody's like, yeah, let's put him on TV. But yeah, I don't know if I have a lot to say about the episode. Again, just it's one of those like very,
Yeah.
you sort of establish where all the characters are at. You establish like Princess Carolyn is dating the mouse guy now, and they decide they want to try to get pregnant, and
Hmm.
so you just kind of establish all the important stuff for the season.
Yeah, it's a setup of the scenario, basically.
Yeah, setup of the Mr. Peanut Butter running for governor, which is important in the season, and
That it's been
so
quite a while since Bojack left and all that.
yeah. But so we could probably move on to the next episode then,
Yeah.
which is the old Sugarman place, and this is a much more poignant episode, and this is probably one of my favorite episodes of the season. Actually,
Mm.
it's the where we actually see where Bojack was this whole time.
Right. Because he just goes driving for a while and you just see him sleeping in his car until he finally just finds his old summer home.
Yeah, the old summer home that his family used to take him to
Mm.
when he was a kid. Because yeah, and it's like all broken down, and he kind of lives there for a while, and
Yeah, in the cold and winter and he's basically dying.
yeah, yeah. Oh, and he like watches like the TV show that like was about Sarah Lynn's
Hmm.
life, like after she died, and I think it's like he's still really holding on to like Sarah Lynn's death. He's still really dealing with that now.
Yeah.
It obviously hit him really hard, and so this is because that was still just right at the end of the last season.
Mm. And he's constantly like, it might be him remembering or maybe hallucinating for various reasons, like his old memories, or maybe not his old memories, but what happened in that house.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's supposed to be him thinking about those things. I think it's just they wanted to kind of show the backstory of other things, something else that happened in the house. But they
Right.
do a really cool way of like showing both at the same time, kind of, which is cool.
Yeah, and they overlap in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Especially, I think the most poignant part is like the scene closer to the end where they go to like take
The song, yeah.
the weather rain and the song. I find myself singing that song a lot. I really like that song.
Mhm.
I will always think of you. Anyways, I'm not going to sing because I suck at singing, but I'm going to stop right there. But
All right.
it's great. Um, well, because it was the song that I don't remember her name, but Bojack's grandmother used to play and sing with her son,
Hmm.
who died. Uh, and I love like the little things they do to like show weird things with like the time period. Like she's crying, her son died, and she had a really strong bond with her son.
Hmm.
And then the dad comes in, and he's just like, "Well, I'm gonna leave because as a man in the 40s, I'm unprepared to deal with a woman's emotions."
I was never
And he
taught,
just
and I am unwilling to learn.
Yeah, I was never taught. Oh yeah, that's right. He goes, "I was never taught to how to deal with a woman's emotions, and I will never learn.
Hmm.
Goodbye." Just like walks
Yeah, terrible.
out. Terrible, but true.
Hmm.
In all with a lot of people. Yeah.
And then she gets her like the rest of her brain separated from her frontal cortex,
Yeah.
so she's just like a zombie.
Well, yeah, she just gets this lobotomy, and it's like
Hmm.
kind of terrifying because like in like the Beatrice as a young child just like sees her mother like this way, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like you're taking a character who up to this point has been pretty much just seen as terrible, right? Like his mother's
Hmm.
just terrible, right? And any flashback you see, she's terrible, and the one
Yeah.
time you see her talk to him a few times. Like I think there's one time you see a flashback where he's like talking to his mom. There's like, and then one time she called him and like told him like, "Oh, you're broken. There's no fixing you," or whatever. Like you just kind of think she's this terrible person, but
Hmm.
then suddenly you start to see like and actually sympathize with her because you see like things that happened in her childhood, and it's kind of like, okay, yeah. There's a reason she's so like
Yeah.
emotionally not there.
Well, it
And
kind of
like,
shows that, like, she's like Bojack, right?
yeah,
Like, the show could have been about her as well.
yeah. And then a lot of it is because like her father, yeah, it's just seeing that and how her father is so like emotionally detached from the family in a way.
Hmm.
Like he's just kind of very like,
And the, like, disgusting kind of control that he has over, like,
mhm.
especially the mother in the most extreme example.
Yeah, exactly. And I, even with her a little bit like, and you see more of it as she grows up in the, and this is, you see the more of it later on, which we'll get to. But yeah, because this focuses a little bit more on the mother
Hmm.
and Beatrice's mother and her, what she went through. Because she has that sort of like emotional outburst because at the party or whatever, which is during the scene where there's like the song and stuff, which is just one of my favorite scenes. Uh,
Yeah.
um, and it's kind of like she has this big, and she's drinking a lot, and like she kisses the one guy who was like her son's friend or whatever, and then like she like drives off and has her daughter who's too young to drive the car, and like
Mm.
and it's, and then crashes, and you're kind of like, you see this emotional sort of outburst, and you kind of think about it, and you're like, the reason why it's happening, it is because her son died and she's having trouble dealing with that, but it's also because she didn't have the support she needed to get through the hard time,
Yeah, yeah.
that a husband should be there for you. You know what I mean? Your
Hmm.
husband should be the one there for you to like help you through. I mean, you'd think he'd be more sad about it too because it was his son as well. But he's just you know
Yeah.
he's just terrible. Uh, um, and she didn't get that sort of emotional support she needed from her husband, so she just kind of had this you know big buildup of the emotions and this sudden outburst.
Hmm.
Um,
I do. I do like the way that they. Oh, one moment. They because like it's told from like her perspective, and so they don't give like the father's perspective on any of it. And in the like comedic parody version of this, they make a blatant point that his only like stresses in life are just making sure his bean counters are doing everything right, and then dealing with his secretary, and that's it.
Somebody's got to compliment my secretary on her tight sweaters.
Hmm.
like,
That.
yeah, he's definitely. I mean, it's definitely in that time period where there was a lot more like sort of just, I guess, objectification of women, where it's just kind of like,
Yeah.
the woman is here to raise the children and uh, you know do the and keep the house in order, and that's it. Woo,
Hmm.
like that kind of, it's kind of that kind of attitude.
Crap.
Um, what?
It's just crap. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were like responding to something like, oh, something broke. Crap.
Oh,
Like
oh no.
I was like, it just, yeah, okay. That makes sense. I was like, wait, what? What's crap?
Oh, close
Um,
enough.
but yeah, no, it's, yeah, that crap. Yeah, and it's kind of, yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense for the time period, obviously, but also like this idea, like he's also like a really important uh, businessman. Like he owns this really, pop big business. He's rich and
Hmm.
everything, so he has all of this to worry about. And he almost has this like sort of idea of like he tries to have his family there as almost as like a way to show the world, yes, I am a man with a family. I have the perfect family. Like, to
Mm.
show everyone else, even though on the inside he doesn't really care about them as deeply as that, you know? And
Yeah.
it's like, so it's like, okay, his wife acts out and he's like, oh, I need to do something to, instead of, let me talk to her and let's try to figure out what's wrong with her and I'm going to help her through these emotions. It's like, we must do so, she's broken. We must do something to fix her. And then they do the lobotomy, you know. It's like, it, so that way now she'll be the perfect wife. She will not have emotions. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Um,
just, I don't know, that weird, disgusting sort of control that he must have.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I think we've
Um,
gone a bit off topic because this is all the all the flashback stuff that is happening throughout the episode. But then there's also everything that Bojack is dealing with in
oh,
like the real
yes.
world that parallels it all.
So Bojack is there and he meets the neighbor, who's this old
I think he was a
dragonfly.
dragonfly, yeah.
Yeah, dragonfly who lives alone, and it's kind of like they hint throughout the episode. It's pretty obvious that there was some sort of like tragic thing that happened with him and
Hmm.
like his wife, and he
I do love that sort of parody thing that they do about it, where like Bojack finally like gets a hint of it about it and says like, okay, fine, keep your secret as to why you won't fly. That's clearly related to your clearly probably dead wife.
yeah, he's like, it's like the show made it pretty obvious that it was that, and then the
Hmm.
show's like, yeah, we know it's obvious. Bojack even comments on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, and then Bojack tries to do the whole like trying to get him to fly thing, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's interesting. He's an interesting character to bring in. I mean, he's only in for one episode, but it's sort of, I guess the idea is to sort of show this parallel between him and Bojack, where it's, you know, Bojack is kind of doing the same thing as him in a way, where he's trying to just kind of leave everything and just wallow in his sadness forever. You know, he's like, I'm just
Hmm.
going to go live alone here and wallow in my sadness forever, which is what this, you know, with the dragonfly does.
Yeah.
You know, Sarah Lynn died, all this happened, and he just wants to, you know, he's dealing with death. He just wants to, but then,
He's distracting himself from it all by,
right.
building this house to what it used to be.
Yeah. And then at the end of the episode is when Bojack fully realizes he's like, I'm still alive. I still have a life that I can live. Like, I can still go
Hmm.
out and try to make the best of my life. Because he sort of has that realization because of seeing where he is, where the dragonfly is in his life, and
Yeah.
being like, wow, that's actually kind of pathetic. You know what I mean? Like, kind of sad, and like I don't want to end up like him.
Hmm.
So that's kind of there's kind of that parallel with the characters there. Um, you know, because he
And
even says at the end, when he's
yeah.
tearing down the house, it's like, yeah, I don't want to, I don't need to leave this house here as a shrine to the past, you know,
Hmm.
a shrine to my own sadness, you know, whatever, like a monument to my sadness or whatever. He's like, I need to, like, kind of just saying, you need to move on, which is really,
And the guy even the fly even says like, well then what was all this work that we spent for? It's like, I don't know, but it's gone now.
yep.
I'm moving on
Yeah.
now,
He's like,
basically.
I'm going home, you know? Yeah. Well, this I think is a really important moment for the character of Bojack as well, because it's like this is one of those moments where he finally is just kind of like, you know what, I need to do better. You know, I need to
Yeah.
go back and do better. You know, you think about like,
He catches himself in his spiral and actually willingly
yeah,
stops it.
yeah, and like you might even think of things like the last thing that Todd said to him, where he's just like, you just need to be better. Like,
Mm.
you can't just keep doing these things and feeling bad about it, and then, like, you know what I mean, like, you need to just do better. And you know, maybe that's another thing he was thinking about as well, you know. And like, um yeah, yeah, so it's a really, yeah, it's a really important moment, and a really important episode for the characters. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't have a lot more to say about it. It's a really solid episode.
I only one more. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is when he like at the very end he actually answers the call from Diane, and she basically like talks him up to, do all this and go back to Hollywood, right?
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure because I just
Yeah.
remember him being like, "I'm in Michigan, everything's terrible. Oh God." And he's like saying like, I can't go back to Hollywood. Like anybody can come here, there's
Uh,
literally no barred entry. It's like, oh right, they literally let anybody in, and they
yeah.
just start joking about that, and then he's just like, oh yeah, I'm calmed down now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, because she starts talking about like how like she heard somebody pitching their show or whatever here
Mm-hmm.
and how
How
they're
they're
making fun of it. Yeah.
how
Yeah. That's
us and his friends, or me and my friends, are all just funny, just hanging out.
yep. Yep. That's like every podcast, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anytime I think of this podcast, I always remember that there used to be like a meme of, that guy that wanted to start a podcast with you because you have pretty good conversations, and you're that guy. You
hmm
are that guy.
I'm that guy who's just kind of like, yeah, we have good conversations. Want to start a podcast?
Yeah. And then I got dragged into it because why not?
Because why not? That's funny. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing is like their whole thing, like an interesting thing about like, I think LA is used as a metaphor in this universe as like this place you can just go and just not worry about your real problems. You can just go there and be who you want and whatever. Everyone
Mhm.
just shows up, whatever.
Yeah, everybody's weird here. Oh, you're a little bit weird? Cool, join the club. Like, no one
Yeah.
cares.
Yep. Yep. Next we have Hooray Todd episode.
Yeah. I paused this to, like, take a momentary break, and that's when I saw the episode title, and I loved it. I loved it so much.
I love how like Todd's thing is like he just goes around doing things for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Like he never does anything for himself. He's just kind of always helping other people, and you're like, I
Yeah.
think this is the first time like that's always kind of been there as a thing. He's always kind of in the background doing things for other people, not really doing much for himself except the occasional shenanigans,
Mm-hmm.
But like this is the first episode that really shows that and makes you go, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, he just does just kind of like
Yeah, people just keep piling on work for him, and he's like, okay, I can do this. I can
he
I can
shows up.
figure a way out.
Princess Carolyn's just like, I need you to go do this. Oh, and then somebody else is like, I need you to go do this.
Mm.
Um, and
And he just kind of like jams it all together and figures out a way to do it all,
yeah,
even if some of it's rather poorly.
yeah, exactly. So that's like, so this episode shows that, but it also sort of progresses some of the other plots
Mm-hmm.
of the season because this is where Hollyhock is first introduced and stuff. And I'm trying to remember what else there is introduced, but there are like it does further other plots of the season while also
Mm.
doing the whole like Todd thing.
Yeah, I remember there's the whole like triangle scene at the, I don't know, the amphitheater or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. And it's like at the last second he shows up to play the triangle.
Yeah, and that like conductor line is just like, sometimes I wish he wouldn't get there, so I know that he would, doing something for himself for a change.
And then the
And then at
episode
the
ends where he doesn't, and they're like,
yeah,
and then good for him.
yeah, which
um,
is, and they also show that he's like finally, accepted that he's asexual, and he's going to like a meeting. So yeah,
yeah,
he is doing something for
yeah,
himself.
Yeah, because throughout the entire episode, he keeps bringing up, he's like, well, I have this meeting I was planning on going to tonight, but I don't know if I'm going to go because there's all this stuff going on. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, what is that meeting? What is that meeting? And then at the end of the episode, he shows up at this, asexual meetup thing. And I was like, oh,
Yeah,
there it is. There it
good
is.
for him.
This is actually a really interesting thing for the character, for them to sort of bring in the asexual thing for the character. Because it was actually, I think this was like one of the first, and biggest like representations of like for asexual people, like a
Oh,
character in a show that's like
yeah.
ever.
When was this?
This
Not quite a
season.
decade ago, right?
I mean, this season was 2017, I believe. Yeah, this
No.
season I think was 2017. But and then the season before this was when they first started to introduce the asexual thing,
Oh,
which
right,
was
right.
2016.
I hmm. I
But
don't actually remember the timeline of any of these like progressive ideas because
yeah,
I don't know. I remember in like fifth or sixth grade, I first heard about the idea of being gay, and I was like, oh, okay.
yeah,
I didn't have any opinion on it because I was however old you are when you're in fifth or sixth grade. I
yeah.
don't know.
You're probably just like, oh, that's a thing. Okay, cool,
Yeah,
whatever.
okay, great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting because it's like this was and from what I have heard, this character was like a really big deal for like the asexual community. It was like a really like good thing. They're like
Yeah, yeah.
really excited to see like actual representation because it's not, and it's one of those things where it's like a lot of times in media what they would do is they would take like, let's say they're having a gay character or they're doing whatever, it's like they would have like a gay character and it's like, oh, the character is gay and that's their characteristic, they are the gay
Mm,
character, and there's not much more to it than that. Or like maybe you'd have a character who's like, oh, they're asexual, so their thing is they don't like sex, and that's it. But like Todd was a whole character outside of that,
yeah,
and then
and
that's
that
just
was.
kind of introduced.
Mhm.
And it also kind of shows him exploring that and figuring that out about himself, which is like maybe a lot of people watching might be also going through, So
Mhm.
it's kind of like uh, I just think it's a really cool thing that they didn't have to do, because like everybody loved the character, you love the character already anyways,
Yeah.
but they did it anyways. Um, yeah, it's really cool that they did that, and I love that throughout the whole episode he's just kind of like, I have this meeting to go to, and it's finally at the end it's that, and
Yeah.
it's
They're
like
just dropping vague hints about it without it actually telling you, and then
mhm,
finally, oh, okay.
yeah. Yeah, and I think this is also the one where so Bojack shows up, and closer to the end, he has a conversation with Bojack where
Hmm.
he goes like, I think I'm an asexual, and oh, Bojack goes like, a sexual what? Sexual deviant? A sexual? He's like, no, I think I'm asexual. And then he finally like says it out loud, and he's just like, wow, feels great saying it, and like, it's like this whole like big moment for him, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Or actually, oh, I have a word to describe this now and a definition to follow that, like, yeah, this actually does describe me, and I can use this. I'm not just some weirdo that doesn't have a name for what he is.
Yeah, exactly. And then, right, and then he goes to the meetup to hopefully find other people who feel the same way. And
Mm.
yeah, so yeah, no, it's really cool. Really interesting. I'm trying to think if there's much else for me to say about the episode. Not really. Um, I think I'm good, unless you have
All
anything.
right. I'm good too.
All right. I still love that the final moment though is like he doesn't show up and is like,
Yes. Oh,
ah,
good for him.
good for him. Also, I love. Okay, no, I will say this. I love the opening where like they're talking about Todd as if he's like some kind of like ancient legend.
Helping people just appearing and disappearing. And then he comes out of the bathroom and saying, like, oh, blah, blah, blah. If you holding a
Acting like
taco.
normal Todd. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think this story was I was eating a taco, And I went to dry my hands on the blow dry wall thing, but I was still holding a taco, so my hands got all greasy. So I've been trying to open this door for like an hour.
Yep. Classic Todd.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, but it's funny because it's like right after they just had this whole spiel about how he's this amazing legend, and then he just comes out, oh, I got all this grease everywhere, tried to dry my hands, got all the taco grease everywhere, whoops. It's just funny. Next we have, hold on, I'm gonna sneeze.
Bless you.
Fun times, yeah, I know. So the next episode is titled Commence Fracking.
Right.
So, yeah. So, I mean, this one deals a lot with Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane's relationship and sort of the downhill of their relationship, where it's like they're kind of have issues because like the politics is getting in the way of their relationship, and
well, yeah, because he's trying to run for governor again, and his first ex-wife is like, just
the campaign manager.
Yeah, do whatever, just get the votes and then deal with anything else.
Yeah.
And eventually that messes up, and he's forced to take a stance on fracking, which is the exact opposite of the one that Diane has. And Mr. Peanut Butter doesn't actually care. He doesn't actually know what fracking is, I don't think. But Diane does. It's so she's mad about it, and that she specifically told him, "Don't do this," and he did it.
Then
even if it was on accident.
And then they do the whole thing where the guy's like, "Would you do it at your house?" And he's like, yeah." So they're doing like they're fracking in his backyard, and it's like, which is just seems like a random thing, which actually becomes important in a future episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just this whole crazy thing. But
I don't know if they actually use because I knew fracking could make earthquakes more common in the area, which they did show, but I never knew anything about the water being flaming hot or anything like that. So I don't know if they actually used actual potential risks to fracking, or if they just made up whatever.
Yeah, I don't really know because I don't really know. I don't. I know very little about fracking, so
I just know it's bad for the environment, like everything else.
Right.
We do in this day and age.
I think it's hilarious the end though, where they're so angry about it, and that anger turns that angry energy just turns into complete sexual energy, and
angry sex.
She starts screaming, "Frack me, Mr. Peanut Butter! Frack me!" Only this show could get away with could do something like that and still be great. It's interesting because this sort of establishes a thing what becomes a thing throughout the season, where it's like they do this thing where it's like they're just kind of like, oh, we just get angry at each other and then have angry sex and then we're good. And it's like,
their entire relationship becomes in private. They're, a calm and loving couple. But as soon as the media or the campaign gets involved, they go at each other's throats in an argument. And then they use that to bring themselves, calm themselves back into the happy, loving couple.
Yeah, and it's kind of not healthy, not a healthy relationship. It's
no, you definitely can't define it as healthy, but in a way, it's kind of airing your grievances, which can be healthy in the right ways. Probably not this way.
Yeah. Well, I think they're trying to show sort of how a political campaign can really tear down a relationship. It can really, harm it, because you're spending so much time and energy on this campaign, and you don't have a lot of time to work on your relationship, and it's just really draining, and so I
Mm-hmm.
think that's sort of what they're trying to go at with it, which is is a real thing, in real life, it's
Yeah.
that people deal with, so it's kind of interesting. uh but yeah, the other thing that's happening in this episode is Bojack is trying to find out, help Hollyhock find her mother, her real
Mm-hmm.
mother, and they go through like different people or whatever. Um,
Yeah,
and
they go through basically everyone that he's ever done in that time frame, and they come up with nothing
yeah, essentially,
except for a ton of awkward moments.
yes. Um, yeah, yeah. So this is also the episode where Princess Carolyn and oh my gosh, what is the mouse's name again? Whatever. It's like Ralph, maybe. Yeah, whatever.
Ralph? I don't know.
No, the mouse. They have sex in the back of a police car, so it's also that
Oh,
episode.
right, because the pregnancy watch that was voiced by
Harvey
somebody.
Firestein.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've never heard of him before, but I assume he's just known for having a very nice voice.
yeah, I don't either, so I don't know. Um, and they got it from the albino rhino gyno. So
Oh, yeah.
I love how like he was on a date with Princess Carolyn in the one episode in the last season, and
Mm-hmm.
now he's just the gynecologist that they go to for their pregnancy. Like, okay,
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
it's like, okay, yeah, we went on a date that one time.
She
Remember?
met him and Ralph on the same day.
Look at that. Look at that.
Which, by the way, I looked it up. His name is Ralph Stilton.
Stilton, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so they do get pregnant, and they're going to name the kid Filbert, which is important later on, too. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. I don't have a lot more to say about the episode. I mean, this is an episode where it's like the story progresses, but I don't have a lot to say about it other than like, it adds what it needs to.
It's just kind of a step forward on all the little
Yeah,
storylines, but not really
anything that poignant.
dramatic stakes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So next we have thoughts and prayers.
All right.
So there's a few things going on in this. One is the whole like movie thing where like the movie, they're having trouble with the movie because there's a scene in the movie where people are shooting at having a shootout at a whatever you call it, a mall, but there was a shooting at the mall in real life, and like it's just kind of this commentary on how like the media is like taking tragedies and instead of thinking about them as the actual tragedies they are, trying to think about how they can either profit off of them or how they might damage their profits,
Yeah.
Thoughts and prayers. Right, thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, they do that a ton, where it's just like they're talking about it, and then they suddenly just go, but
But
all my thoughts and prayers for the people. Yeah, thoughts and prayers.
yeah, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims. Yeah, thoughts and prayers. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Where they clearly don't actually care. They're just
it's just
saying it to save face,
saying.
But it's also the episode where Diane gets a gun.
Right.
And they start
just kind of, I don't know, she gets obsessed with it in a way.
Yeah, because she realizes like, oh, like women don't feel safe walking down the street with men, so maybe women should get guns so they feel safe again. And then like
and I don't know, I think it was at the end of the episode where like that whole women gun thing goes to an extreme, like a man can't feel safe walking down the street because every woman owns a gun. And she's like, well, if you don't want that, then either control your guns or make sure that women can feel safe as well. He goes, okay, no more guns in California. What?
Like, and then she goes, wow, I can't believe this. She's like, I can't believe this country um, hates women more than it loves guns.
Princess Kennedy is like, really? You sure? I can believe it.
Yeah, it's interesting because like Diane is a character who's constantly searching for like the social justice kind of things, all that, but like nobody around her cares in the slightest, and so you kind of feel frustrated for her sometimes. You're like, oh my gosh, like she's actually thinking about like the way things really affect people, but everybody else is just kind of thinking about themselves. Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Like there was the whole thing with Hank Hippopopoulos, and there was like the different things like that. Um, yeah. Um, but yeah.
What's Bojack's story in this one?
So yeah, in this one, so the Bojack story in this one is the only one that I think is really important to the overall plot. Like I think the other things are just kind of mostly side things. There's maybe a few important moments here and there, but so with Bojack, this is the one where him and Hollyhock go to see his mother at the nursing home.
Right. And she
And
and the mother start getting along.
yeah, and it turns out
he doesn't believe that she actually has dementia.
Yeah. This is actually the episode where the F-bomb is dropped.
Oh, it is? I don't remember.
Yeah, so he's talking to Hollyhock, and he's like coming up with this plan for how he's going to do the fake episode of Horsing Around, and he's like, yeah, and then maybe she'll actually recognize me, and as soon as she notices that it's actually me, I'm going to say, fuck you. Like,
yeah,
it's supposed, yeah. I don't know how I feel about that though, because I feel like it wasn't used in nearly as hard hitting of a way as the other seasons.
But
I guess it's sort of to show it is still effective though, because I think it's to show sort of how strong his hatred for his mother really is, like
right.
his
and
resentment for her mother.
How it is used in these seasons like shows that like those seasons it was used against him,
but now he's using it again. Yeah, it's sort of a shift. Yeah. Yeah,
and it's no longer the story's no longer as depressing in this season. Like, the bar hasn't been high ever. The bar's always been very low, but the bar's a little bit higher for this season.
Yeah. So it's pretty good. Yeah, it's just sort of yeah. But it's kind of this thing where it's like, no matter what, he can't bring himself to like say anything positive about his mother or think that she's has any good intentions whatsoever, which is in a way justified because of like of how he was raised and how terrible of a mother she was. But it's like, he can't see that like maybe she is just kind of changed now. I don't know. It's interesting.
Change is a weird way to put it when she just has dementia, where she just isn't in her right mind anymore.
Yeah. It's, I don't know. It's kind of difficult to. Yeah. I can see that.
It's more like she's not fully there, and so even if he does do it, it's it won't have the same effect.
Yeah. Another thing that's established in this episode is the fact that she keeps referring to him as Henrietta, who you don't know who that is until later on, at the end.
Yeah, and she's kind of quite important.
Yeah. You kind of assume that she's like, was her maid or something once, you're like, it kind of gives off that vibe whenever she calls him Henrietta. But yeah, so the episode ends where he takes her into his house. But yeah, I don't really have a lot more to say about the episode other than that. I think that's one that's kind of a very like, you're driving the plot forward, but I don't have a lot to say beyond that.
Yeah, because the whole thing was that they couldn't find her mother, so what might as well meet her grandmother then, right?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. At least do that, yeah.
Mhm.
Which turns out is actually, but we'll talk about
Yeah.
that later on too.
Would that, I
um,
guess that would be considered a stepmom, right?
what's that? What would be considered?
Would that?
Yeah, I guess it would,
Because that's
maybe,
always weird, because like
because
usually you
it's
think
her
marry in
dad's.
afterwards is the stepmom, but if they married in before, is that still a stepmom? I would assume so.
Yeah, maybe. Sure, I guess. I don't
Alright.
know. I don't know. But anyways, so I'm probably done talking about that episode. If you are
Sure.
sure, okay. So next we have stupid piece of shit,
Ah, yes. This episode had a line that hit me way too hard.
which is
Uh, let's wait for a moment.
okay. Okay. So I think this is a really strong episode too. This is like is even just the opening. Like it's so it opens. Bojack has this inner monologue that's just
Hmm.
constantly going. That's just basically just tearing himself down. Yeah, you're a real stupid piece of shit. Like,
Hmm.
why are you eating cookies for breakfast? That's not
Stop that.
breakfast. Like, you fat ass. Like he's just constantly tearing himself down, and they even do this really cool animation to go along with it, which is like this really like rough like
Right. There've
animation.
been moments of it in earlier seasons, but this is like the first time that it's been like a
Hmm.
bunch of it in a single episode.
Yeah, yeah. So this is just such a good episode to really get inside of Bojack's head, because like it's one of those things where you kind of know Bojack is this way anyways. You kind of know that he's kind of a little bit self-loathing and everything anyways, but it's like now you really see it, and you really feel it. Um and it feels very real too, because it's kind of this thing where it's you almost feel like a lot of people, even maybe even yourself a little bit, kind of do this to yourself, tear yourself down in your head.
Hmm.
I mean, that's kind of when I'm watching it, I kind of feel that too. It's kind of like, oh,
Yeah.
um
It's a very extreme example of it, but yeah,
yeah, but
it's
still it's
definitely,
kind of like
it's
eh,
relatable to a lot of people.
yeah. Well, and apparently it's this thing where it's like the I was watching a video of like a real like psychiatrist or whatever reacting to this episode once, and he was
Hmm.
saying like basically like everyone has that sort of inner monologue about themselves. It's just some people's aren't as prominent and as destructive as others. Some are more extreme and more loud and more.
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
people can kind of tune it out and kind of be like, yeah, whatever. um but yeah, and it's just to see like little things like he goes out and he's just like he has a task to do. He has to go get milk, but he just,
And he,
instead of simple task, just go to the store, get milk, go back. Okay, he goes, oh, I'm gonna stop, get one drink. Next thing you know, he's at the bar all day. Like,
mhm. And he's constantly degrading himself because of this,
yeah,
and
and
it
he's
just
like,
makes him do it more.
yeah, he's just sitting there like, oh, you stupid alcoholic. Like he knows, he's calling himself an out. Like at the beginning of the episode, he's like, you stupid, you're a real stupid piece of shit. But at least I know I'm a piece of shit. So doesn't that make me better than the other pieces of shit, or is it worse? Like, like he's sitting
Mhm.
there. Yeah, yeah. It's like he knows when he does something terrible that it's a terrible thing that he did, but he just still can't stop himself from doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, and then the main sort of story of this episode is he's there, and he gets Hollyhock gets his mom a baby doll. She keeps talking about a baby and how, and
Mhm.
he kind of does an asshole thing, takes the baby doll and throws it out the window, which is like in his mind is like this like I'm getting back at my mother for being so shitty, but like
Right.
it's
The
also kind
monologue
of
in that, like his like little thought process monologue in that switches for a moment
mm-hmm.
because it's no longer like insulting him a ton. It's like, throw it over, throw it over. It's egging him on to do this terrible thing.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and then yeah. Well, it's interesting. He has an interesting conversation, I think, with Mr. Peanut Butter when he goes out to get a
Mm-hmm.
drink and he sees him there, and he's like, "Yeah," he's like, "I'm just gonna probably." He's like, "Yeah, I have this daughter and do whatever." He's like, "Probably just gonna Bojack the whole thing up." And he's like, "Oh, by that do you mean show up and be the life of the party and blah, whatever?" And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
"No, I mean like ruin everything, like ruin, whatever."
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's interesting to see sort of the difference between how other people view him compared to how he views himself. Like Mr. Peanut Butter views Bojack in a really positive way. He's like, "You're a really cool guy and a fun friend. But like Bojack is still like, "No, I'm terrible. He's wrong."
Yeah. Uh, Once again, people like, anybody who has a golden retriever-esque personality, it's that's a good thing. Having someone that can believe in you like that and is like, can like you
Mhm.
like that, even if you don't like yourself, that's a great thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, I really like the it really shows the whole idea of the phrase. It's like you are your harshest your own like every you are your harshest critic or whatever. I
Yeah,
think is
yeah.
the phrase. It's like you always see yourself more negatively than other people a lot of times,
Hmm.
or like you might whatever. And with some people that's really extreme, like Bojack. Like that's uh, which I guess is very common with people who have like real depression. Which it's I mean it's pretty apparent that Bojack legitimately has
Yeah, yeah, he
depression,
probably,
not not just is depressed sometimes, but actually has depression.
right. I don't know. At the very least, he has depression. Maybe some other things as well, but at the very least, depression. Definitely
Hmm.
some addictions to alcohols and drugs.
Yeah, which probably stem partially from the depression, or maybe they feed into it. It's maybe kind of a
Yeah,
one of those kind of things.
they
Yeah,
got a symbiotic relationship that
yeah,
is parasitic to Bojack.
hmm hmm yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Um, yeah. So he, yeah. So I mean, I don't really know. And then, oh yeah, and then it ends on sort of a poignant moment too. He's goes and he's talking to Hollyhock, and she's like, where do you go all day? And he's like, sometimes I just go and sit next to the road and do nothing. And she's just like, well, you would rather do that than hang out with me? And it's just kind of like this. And he's just kind of like, well, no, it's just, I don't know. Like, it's one of those things where he just doesn't know why he does it, but like he does. It's like,
Yeah.
he's constantly like stuck in his head thinking about like what would happen if he did stuff. So he just decides maybe it's better off to just not do anything,
Hmm.
or like he ends up not doing anything. I don't know, it's kind of this interesting thing. um and then it ends with her saying like, yeah, sometimes I have this like little voice in my head telling me I'm terrible and that everybody hates me. Does that ever go away? And he's just kind of like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it goes away.
um but
Oh,
yeah, I don't have a whole ton of things to say left.
uh, I can't relate to this episode on a huge level. Like, I definitely beat myself down sometimes, but not to this extent, of
Oh
course.
yeah, yeah.
But, like, and this, I don't know, I'm not a psychiatrist. This might be just as bad, but I very rarely ever, like, address myself in my own mind.
Hmm.
Like, I think from my own point of view. I never, address myself or like to build myself up or tear myself down. It's always just I'm me and there's no separation between my thoughts and me, you know?
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah.
So, so like, that's good that I'm not tearing myself down, but there might be some level on which that is bad that, like, I'm not considering myself on any level. I'm just thinking from my perspective, and that's it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're not sort of thinking maybe as much how somebody else might view you, or like how you're not viewing yourself as like a separate person, but as just
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
or perhaps a better way to phrase it would be I'm not important enough for myself to consider me,
Mm. Okay.
which is like, that's probably the whole thing that I should probably unload, but it's
Yeah.
just a part of me, I guess.
Yeah.
Which, but the line that really did hit me, which I relate to a terrible amount because it is terrible. He throws the baby over the edge of the balcony. He goes down, and Mr. Peanut Butter sniffs it out, and they find the one celebrity that lives below there, and she doesn't
Yeah.
give it
Felicity
back. And
Huffman.
yeah,
Yeah.
and he gets angry at her for not giving it back. And if this ends up being too real and too heavy, just cut this out. Because it might. And his inner monologue says, "What if I just jumped off the balcony and landed in her yard?" That would show her, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God, I've done that. I've had similar thoughts to that so many times. I'm terrible. Why? And it was
Yeah.
such a like hard reflection of something that I've done multiple times. It's like, yeah, this isn't okay. Oh God.
Yeah. 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 Um. Yeah. I mean, I think this just shows, I guess, just how uh, relatable things can really be in this show. Like, I don't know. It's
Hmm.
just they really did a good job at kind of really just showing realistic thoughts and realistic,
Yeah, it hit me hard. Like I
yeah,
was stunned for a moment.
yeah,
I had to hit pause and be like, oh, that's, it
mm-hmm,
was just a pinpoint button press of something that just really got to me.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's amazing how just how real this like show can be sometimes. Like it's because it is this like just crazy, wacky anthropomorphic animal world where ridiculous things happen all the time, but it's also more real than like most live action shows. Most shows
Mhm.
that are serious dramas and like more, tried to be taken seriously kind of show. Like I don't know, and I mean that's why it's one of my favorite shows of all time.
Yeah,
Um, uh,
it does the goofy anthropomorphic animals, cartoon, all this stuff is really weird and, it builds on those scenarios and makes them even weirder by adding real life scenarios. But at the core of it, like the emotions and these characters and how they feel, they dig deep and like they don't hide anything. They go straight
mhm.
for like the hard truth of these kinds of people.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean that's yeah, yeah. I don't know. I really like. I don't know. I really like how they handle all that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um,
It makes me uncomfortable, but it's well done.
yeah. Yeah. I find that I am able to deal with things like that are kind of make you uncomfortable, like things like this,
Mhm.
pretty well. Like if it's a show or a movie or whatever, I deal with things like that pretty well. Um, but yeah, I can see why, like, to some people it would really, just really make you not want to watch.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, if it was, uh, if it was like 20% worse, I probably wouldn't want to watch it anymore, even for the podcast.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It definitely creates a lot of good discussion, though. That's for
Yeah, oh
sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which is yeah. It's a very special show. I think it's just very yeah. It's difficult to really like describe to somebody unless you should they actually watch it, too. Because
Hmm.
like in starting this, I was kind of thinking, I was like, how do I describe this? I'm like, well, it's like a comedy, but it also has a lot of like serious, deep stuff too. Like, okay,
Yeah,
a lot
you
of stuff
telling me
has
about this when you said we were gonna do this for the podcast did not prepare me at all.
yeah. Well, like, how do you though? You know what I mean? Like, and
Mm,
that's kind of how I experienced it for the first time too. Is like, first time I watched it, I think I had recognized, I had heard of it vaguely, but not really, and I just saw it on Netflix one time, and I was like, sure, I'll watch it. I
mm,
watched it. I liked the comedy and stuff, and I thought it was kind of funny. Like I was just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll keep watching. And then suddenly I was just like, oh, like it just
this isn't a
started to hit
comedy
me,
anymore. Yeah.
and I was like, okay, and it's very difficult to describe to somebody. It's like you just have to watch it, to
Hmm.
really get it. I think, um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, no, this is a really good episode.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah. But yeah, we can move on if you are ready to.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So anyways, we're about halfway through now. So, cause that was episode 6. Next is Underground, which is mostly ridiculous comedy.
Oh
So,
yeah.
let's dial it back to something a little lighter now, hopefully. Uh,
So
I
they're
just,
having a party, and fracking causes an earthquake, and their entire house sinks on the ground. Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter's house, and they're all trapped.
and they're dealing with that.
Hmm.
Um, this is just so like I don't really know how to describe this episode. It's just absolute like ridiculous scenarios and stuff. It's
Hmm.
um
They
yeah.
start worshiping the fire after like 6 days or something. Like,
because of Jessica Biel. Jessica Biel is like absolutely insane in
hmm,
this. And I'm pretty sure it's voiced by the real Jessica Biel too. So like she was okay with this portrayal of her character. She like burns Zach Braff and eats his flesh. Like
hmm. There's a guy that has a mini orgasm anytime he senses the shift in power. And
like
so every once in a while he just pops up like, oh.
yeah. Well, and then the governor comes down, and then
Hmm.
they're idiots, and he's like, "Oh no, just it's like 3 cheers for for Woodchuck," and then they do it too many times, and it causes the rocks to fall and crush his
Yeah.
hands.
He's like, oh no, no, don't. The tunnel is unstable. All right.
They do
Let's
3.
just do one
One
more
more
cheer.
cheer. Hip hip hooray. Oh, turns out 3 was actually an adequate number of cheers.
Hmm. I do love the moment where he comes down and it's like, because what is he? A woodchuck. Because a woodchuck is a burrowing animal, I came down here to rescue you all. And Diane's like, oh, I wonder why I always thought that a woodchuck is like, sort of like a beaver. I just feel stupid now.
She
It's
was. I think
like,
she was. She drunk when she said that too. Was that
I
when?
think so,
Or
yeah.
maybe yeah, yeah. She just kind of goes and gets drunk with Bojack. Well,
Hmm.
I think it's because it's like the first time her and Bojack have seen each other since he left,
Right.
and like yeah,
But I just like them poking fun at the fact that, yeah, for some reason, everyone has like this synopsis kind of, like these two animals are very similar, even though they're not at all.
Yeah, yeah, I know. That's funny. Yeah, I do like when they have like little things that they point out like that, where you're just like, oh yeah, yeah, um, yeah, and then like Todd and Princess Carolyn are off some like they find these ants
Hmm.
that have this whole thing, and she's negotiating a deal for them because she's an agent slash manager.
Oh, yeah.
You know the difference between agents and managers? Managers are always trying to tell you what the difference is between them, and agents don't do that as much.
Mhm.
No,
No, it's that managers can produce.
managers can produce. um,
I
yeah,
do love the way that they finally get out. It's just like the ants realize that they're down here and think they're invading, so they just
they're
push
just
them
like,
back
get
up.
them out of here.
Hmm. I don't want to
Um,
deal with them. Push them somewhere else. Why don't we just take the city and push it somewhere else?
oh yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, SpongeBob Patrick. Which, this is off topic. I just recently remembered my favorite SpongeBob quote, which is Patrick Star, like the ultimate idiot, going, "The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma."
Yeah, I think I remember that one a
Hmm.
little bit. Yeah, it's probably one of the early SpongeBob. SpongeBob was
Hmm.
only really good in the early days, like first like 3 seasons or so.
I I cannot think of SpongeBob in seasons because they're just all like jumbled together in my
Yeah.
mind.
Well, recently I watched like one of the newer SpongeBob episodes, and I hated it.
Mm.
Like absolutely, like it was just not the same. I was just like, what even is this? um, but yeah. Anyways, continuing. Um, So I don't really know like what else to say about the episode. It's just very ridiculous scenarios. By the end, Mr. Peanut Butter like decides to not run for governor anymore. I really love the final moment of the episode, though. It's like all of it's literally just the main characters of the show standing there,
Hmm.
like all together for the first time in probably a while, and they're just all kind of like, yeah, who wants to get some food? Yeah, okay. Like all that just happened, they're all
Mm.
just kind of like, yep.
All right, let's wind down.
Let's get
Wanna go grab a drink or
whatever.
something?
So let's get. I forget what they said. It's like let's get whatever. And Bojack says, "Yeah, that's some good bread."
Hmm.
Yep. Like it just ends with that. I just love that final moment, and like the house falling apart too. It's just
Yeah.
oh yeah, because Mr. Peanut Butter is like, we're gonna stop. I'm gonna stop running for governor, and I'm gonna take you home. Wait.
Oh wait, it's destroyed.
Whoops. But yeah, yeah, no, it's a fun episode. It's nice. It's nice to have like a more just kind of ridiculous, funny episode.
Hmm.
Even though like yes, a person does get burnt alive in it. An innocent person does get burnt alive by Jessica Biel, but
Mm.
that innocent person being Zach Braff, who I
Yeah,
believe was
he was
also
waiting
voiced
for
by
his
the real.
parking to be validated.
Yeah, that's all he wanted.
Hmm.
And he has like a really good point. He's like, we all need to work together to try to get out of this. Blah blah blah. He's like, he has this really nice little thing to say to everybody. And it's like, oh, that's nice. And then she just goes, burn him.
Yeah, with the classic like hairspray lighter flamethrower.
Well, and then they all leave, they all finally get out, and then she just kind of goes, all right, nobody's ever talking about this again. Okay, bye.
Hmm.
And you're just like,
And just starts using
and the
that
next thing you know,
hairspray.
she runs for governor too, and you're like, really? After all that
Hmm.
insanity, you're just gonna run for governor? Like, that's un-Jessica believable.
Let's I forget what it refers to, but she starts calling something the B list, and Diane's like, "Oh, you mean like a B list celebrity? No, like Jezebel Beale." He's like, "Yeah, I don't think we're talking about the same thing."
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's just all these jokes about her name.
Hmm.
Oh, jeez. But yeah, we can move on to the next one if you'd like to.
Sure.
You're ready for that. The next is The Judge.
All right. He appears on a single episode of some booty
Of,
judge
what is
thing.
it? Felicity Huffman's Booty Academy.
Yeah, that's
Well,
something.
because he knows the title of the show is like what FH BA, but he doesn't know what it actually is. That he just gets there and just like Felicity Huffman's Booty Academy. Well, what is this now? What's all
And
this now?
there's the guy who I assume is the I like big bucks guy, and I cannot lie. That song.
Yeah, it's
Like,
him.
I'm a
I
judge
cannot lie.
because I, the one thing that's known about me is I cannot lie. Yep, that's definitely the one thing.
So this is it's about so we're judging their booties. What?
No.
No, of course not. Then at the end, she says something. So it is about judging their booties.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh! Cover up your bottom and go. But
Did I
yeah,
ever give any inclination about what that show is about?
other than possibly judging girls' booties, no.
Hmm. Because I do remember they introduced like two or three characters, and they were all just like, yeah, they do this, that, and the other. And like some of that stuff was like really impressive or really nice. And now she's gonna talk her way, blah, 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 to the judges. Like, what?
Yep. That's funny. Yeah, no, it is funny. But yeah. But no, one of the main sort of stories of this episode though is Hollyhock meets an intern who's working on the show,
Mm-hmm.
Miles, who she likes, and he likes her supposedly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Bojack can't believe that a guy would like her, which is it.
Or maybe it stems more from him being protective of her.
It's that, but there's also this idea of like he thinks all people are shitty, I guess, and like
Yeah.
oh he's just gonna hump her and dump her, like. Eh.
Yeah, I don't think it's specifically that she's not good enough to get a guy like him. More like a guy
Yeah.
like him would never, like, isn't nice enough to actually consider dating someone for
Yeah.
real, I guess.
Yes. Also, good important lesson to learn from this episode. You should never imply that your daughter is a blob. That you think your daughter is a blob. Um,
Or anybody.
not that that's yes or anybody, but especially like your daughter because I feel like you're I don't know if
Yeah,
you're the
yeah.
parent. Although it's not like she doesn't see him as her like dad because she has 8 dads, 8
Hmm.
adopted dads. Um, but he yeah, but like he wasn't saying he thought that. He was just saying like he was trying to imply that like guys might think that and like um yeah,
Yeah,
it's just he
he
was
had a point somewhere, but it was kind of
but he
lost, and
just
he never
kind
really.
of he just didn't know how to he just said it came out wrong, which I
Mm,
think the thing is like he struggles because like he doesn't know how to be a good dad. Like he wants to be a good dad for her
mhm.
because he's trying to like turn his life around and be like I'm going to be a positive influence on the people around me. He wants to be a good dad to her, but it's hard for him because like he literally has no examples for good parenting because both of his parents are just terrible.
Yeah, and
um
doesn't at some point he just goes, I always blamed, he's talking to his mother. I always blamed you for being a terrible mom, but turns out parenting's just impossible.
yeah. Turns out parenting's just I mean yeah it is a difficult thing to do it's
Oh yeah.
I mean I don't know I haven't done it yet,
Yet.
someday.
Mm.
But yeah, it's not, being a parent's not easy.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I do think it's funny, the whole thing where he just goes, he's it's like he tells the woman, he's like, you want you to sleep with the PA. She's like, I slept with the PA. But he because he thought that Miles was the PA, even though he told
Mm.
him that he was the intern. He's just
You thought I was a PA? Yes.
nice. You thought I was a PA? Nice. Oh my gosh.
Like, I'm an intern. I don't get paid. I got all the power.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, that's one way to look at it. They
I
don't pay you.
guess. He's
They
like, what are they
can't
gonna
make you
do?
do anything.
What are they gonna do? Cut my pay? What are they gonna do? Fire me? I don't get paid anyways. I just get college credits. um, but yeah, it's actually kind of sad though in the end, because it turns out that he didn't actually like her.
Just wanted to get a script out
Yeah,
there.
because
Yeah.
it's kind of nice. You kind of think it's nice. You're like, oh, Hollyhock has like a guy who likes her, and it's like they might have this sweet, nice relationship. That's nice. And then
Yeah. Bojack Horseman doesn't do that.
and then he has that scene where he's just like, it turns out he was just doing it to like try to get to, you know, her dad, try to get to Bojack so he could get him to like
Mm.
read his script that he read. And you're just kind of like,
Yep, there it is. That's
yeah.
what this show has taught me to expect. That there are no good happy endings.
Anytime there's something nice, it gets
It must
torn
be
away.
crushed.
Yeah. Yeah. Beyond that, I'm trying to think what else there is going in here. Oh, this is the one where Princess Carolyn goes to meet Ralph's family.
Right. They're in their weird anti-cat
Yeah.
cult crap.
Like, imagine like and just to imagine like what this would be like in like our world, right? Is like, imagine you are a white person dating a black person, right? Which is, totally fine, obviously. But you don't tell your significant other, who is the black person, that your family is like part of the KKK, and then they go to meet them, and that's when they find out.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude,
Like,
probably at least a warning would be good. Or like,
it's kind of actually that kind of sounds like the plot of Get Out, isn't it? Like,
Get Out? Let's Get Out. I don't remember.
It's a horror movie, but it's like the character is like, he's black and he's dating a white girl, and she takes him to see his family, but it turns out they're like really weird, and they like kidnap and stuff. They're extremely racist, and I don't know the whole plot, but it's kind of a horror thing.
Oh, okay.
It's like, yeah. But yeah, no, that's kind of, that's what it is, right? Because they have this whole anti-cat thing. But there's kind of a nice moment though at the end where he's just kind of like,
he tells off his family.
Tells off his parents. He's like, you know what? We're getting married. She's pregnant with my kid, so there you go.
And we're happy. Yeah.
Like, yeah. Well, not for long, but
well, it is this show.
It is Bojack Horseman. As soon as something nice is there, it gets torn away. But for this episode, they're happy by the end of this episode. Yeah. So that's a whole thing. I think I really like the line where he's just like, it's kind of like church. You say the word so much, you don't even really know what they mean anymore. You don't even really think about what they mean anymore, and you're like, yeah.
Ah, yes, I remember church.
Yeah.
Going back to church is so weird. Like, I went like a few years ago because of like some family member doing something for church, but it was like, oh yeah, this is what it was like. This is weird as hell.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, change this even slightly, and it's like some Call of Cthulhu shit.
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember what else is happening in this episode. It says and the description says Mr. Peanut Butter throws his support behind Woodchuck. So I guess this is the episode where at the end he like. Is this the episode where they start the clown dentist business? I think it might be. I don't
It
know.
might have been, yeah.
Yeah, which is a whole fun side plot.
Uh,
So
children must love clowns because, like, adults don't. Adults find them creepy. And if, someone has to like clowns or they're just there for no reason, so kids must like clowns, right? Like, no one likes clowns.
no one likes. There's a
Why do
reason
clowns exist?
There's a reason one of the most popular villains of all time is based on a clown.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
Seriously, like clowns are like an old thing that dates back like quite a while, right? So
Yeah.
did kids or adults like used to like clowns, or have they just always been creepy and no one knows why they exist?
I feel like at some point it was like a thing that kids actually kind of liked, because they were like fun, wacky, colorful,
Because like if they're not, then that just like they're just cryptids at that point, right?
Yeah.
Like they were just invented to be fun, but they're not fun, and so they were invented for no reason.
But they still exist somehow,
Yeah.
It's just like,
No.
okay, whatever.
Like why did clowns stay around and not mimes? Like mimes are at least somewhat entertaining.
Mimes are
And they
better
can be
than
like
clowns.
kind of funny.
They're not really creepy either.
I mean, they can be creepy, but like,
mime can be creepy, but it's not as much. Yeah, it's not as creepy
definitely
as a
not
clown.
as much as a clown.
Yeah. But we can move on to the next episode if you would like to. Again, that's another one where it's like you progress some plot, but I feel like there's not a lot to say about it other than that.
This whole season is full of episodes that are like, you're definitely progressing stuff, and there's a ton of interesting things, but it's like,
I just don't.
it's not nearly as impactful as in the others.
Yeah. Whereas it's like this episode has a very like I think this season is one where like there's like a few really, really strong, impactful episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of them are like good. But then they progress the plot and they do what they need to and they're good and they have some good moments, but they're not as like, but then you have some extremely poignant ones.
Well, like the entire point of this season seems to be it's, the upturn, I guess, for Bojack.
Yeah, it's like...
So it makes sense that there's simpler episodes. There's nothing that's like beating him down all the time anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they start to focus a lot on the other characters and stuff, and it's... Yeah. And sort of like the other characters outside of their relationship with Bojack, because I feel like, like you start to explore Todd a little bit more. You start to explore like Princess Carolyn isn't even working for Bojack anymore, so you sort of explore her character outside of being Bojack's manager, or I guess agent, not manager. So yeah. Next is Ruthie.
Oh, so I don't remember this one at all.
So the reason why it's called Ruthie is, if you remember at the beginning, it's like years in the future, it's Princess Carolyn's like great granddaughter or whatever telling a story in her classroom, and her name is Ruthie. The bean system is the way.
Oh, hail bean system, or whatever they said.
Yeah, that's how they tell time. Your story is too many beans long. You're just like, okay.
What is the bean system? Tell me.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to know the details of the bean system now. But yeah, so the episode is framed in this whole like thing where it's Ruthie telling the story of her, it's Princess Carolyn's great granddaughter telling the story of her ancestor and like a really bad day that she had, but like how she still picked herself up and kept going even after this really bad day. So this is kind of just, it's a really good Princess Carolyn episode for sure.
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's a really poignant ending as well, because she has that moment. She calls, you'd think the episode would end with going back to Ruthie and showing her in her classroom being like, that's the end of my story, and them going, wow, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't. It ends
It
with
ends
Princess
with
Carolyn talking to Bojack,
that
saying
she's been fantasizing it. Yeah.
this is a fake thing she makes up. And she says this after finding out that she had a miscarriage, but her like fifth miscarriage she's had in her life
Mm-hmm.
too. And so you start
And
to realize, you're like,
her
oh,
family heirloom is fake and all these other things,
yeah,
and she just broke up or basically broke up with
yeah,
Mouse Boy.
yeah. And that's a really sad moment, because you kind of realize her having a kid, and she's like, I have to succeed, because my in my brain I'm thinking, how else would she be able to tell people? But he's like,
Mm-hmm.
but that's fake. And you realize, you're like, yeah, it is fake, because she can't have a kid, so obviously she doesn't have that you know great great grandchild,
Yeah.
and you're like, and it's something that means a lot to her. And she's mentioned different points throughout the show, and especially in this season, about how she really wants a family and wants to be a mother.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of been a running thing with the character that's been more hinted at in the earlier seasons. And this season, it's been fully brought to the forefront, been a big
Right.
part of her character. And to
Well,
see
yeah.
kind of,
This entire episode is kind of like I forget at what point she mentioned it, but like her entire thing is that she has her work. She's a workaholic and she loves her work, but she also wants to start a family, and she like can't do both. They both take up too much time to do both.
yeah,
And this
yeah,
entire thing is her struggling, trying to do both and failing at all of it, and everything going wrong horribly.
yeah. Well, also, it not only is it like all this, one of the other bad things that happens is, she learns that Judo went behind her back and she can't trust him anymore, and she fires him.
Hmm.
Sorry. And he's probably one of the best employees she's ever had.
Yeah,
It's kind of like, you're kind of like, oh.
I kind of liked the send off of that though too, because like he fired, and he could you could tell that he was like about to say something or maybe get emotional in whatever capacity he was gonna, but he takes a deep breath and just says okay, and as he's about to leave, he reminds her of like her next meeting, and she
Yeah,
says thank you, and then he goes and says good night.
yeah. But he also says before that, he says, like, I have found this experience to be, very pleasurable. Or like he said, above average, basically showing like he's like actually gonna miss it. And like
Yeah, yeah.
in his own sort of, like he does, he says like, sorry for getting so emotional, even though like, he his very like
He's not. Yeah,
specific
that's
way.
entire
But
bit.
yeah, but it's kind of sad too, because I don't know, I really like the character. He's a
Yeah,
really cool character, and you're just like, oh, no, there he goes.
I don't know. And Princess Carolyn in her workaholic state needs someone that's like that rigid and structured to like keep her in check.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, but yeah, and her relationship ends because he kind of sees her. He kind of mentions multiple times. He's like, oh, it's so easy to deal with you, haha, like whatever.
Mm,
And she kind of is like, you know what? Sometimes, like sometimes there's negative sides to me. There's bad sides to me, and in order to date me, in order to be with me and raise a child with me, you have to be willing to handle all of it, handle the
yeah,
bad and the
yeah,
good. And she's like, I don't think you can. It's this sort of, which I mean, you know, in real life, that's
yeah. People aren't simple creatures. We have
yeah,
dualities and aspects of ourselves that
yeah, and
aren't
it.
the greatest.
And I mean, I think that's an important lesson for any relationship. Is like, in order, if you love like your significant other, like you have to be willing to love them just the same on their good days as you do on their bad days.
Yeah.
You know,
And of
for
course, this doesn't mean you're allowed to be a shitty person to your partner. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
you should try to control your bad days and
Uh,
control those bad aspects of yourself.
but
But
it's
there also are you, so, you know.
it's one of those things where it's like, you know, nobody's a perfect person, and you have to be willing, you know, if you're gonna be in a relationship with somebody, you have to be willing to still love them just the same, even when they're going through a time that's not good, or going through, you know, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, this is a good episode. It's a really good Princess Carolyn episode for sure. She's a
Yeah,
good character.
yeah.
And there's that scene where she just breaks down in tears too, which, like, I think it's interesting just how effective simply having a character break down in tears can be. Like, that's, like, it seems like a simple thing, but like how effective it can hit you emotionally, you know? Because it's
Yeah, yeah.
like thinking back even on season 2, there's a scene where Bojack just breaks down in tears, and it's like that hits you hard, kind of. But it's like, you know, it's just this, I don't know. It's like a character that you think is invincible. Well, with her at least, it's like a character you think is invincible and can't be beaten down, but she is, you know. Uh, yeah.
I don't know. I haven't. You ever think, like, I mean, this might be a terrible thought process, but you ever think, like you want to break down at that, like that at some point and just have, like, a cathartic crying moment
Hmm.
to just let something out? Because, like, obviously, you know, in order for you to do that, you need to feel terrible, and you know, it's bad. You feel like shit, and you don't want to go through that. You shouldn't want anyone to go through that. But breaking down crying is also like a form of relief. And, you
Hmm.
know, you might end up better off afterwards than when you even
Yeah.
gained all that stress to begin with. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is true. Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, I could say in my own experience that is kind of how it is, right?
Mm.
It's there are times, like, you need to. There are times where that's what you need, you know,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
just yeah, let all the emotions out. um, have a release.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to think what else happened in this episode. See, but this was also the episode where Bojack and Diane go to try to get Hollyhock's birth certificate to figure out who her mother is. Um,
Right.
there's not much to say about it other than they,
There's a few moments of like Bojack arguing with the lady, and
yeah,
she's just like, well, you need to do all this paperwork, go up to this line, and then that line, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, you win this round.
yeah. I do think it's kind of funny how they go like how they go back to like the whole Ruthie thing, and she's just like, Ruthie, I thought this was a story about your great great grandmother. It is, but these adding characters fleshes out the world a little bit.
Uh, I love that so much. That's totally something that I would do. Like, no, I need the story. I need all of it.
Yeah, we need
Like,
to
I'm
flesh
gonna
out
make
the
a
other
D&D
characters a little bit
campaign, and
more.
I'm gonna be like, well, this guy that lives in the middle of the nowhere is there, and my players are never gonna get there, but he's gonna be the most detailed part of my campaign because I love him.
Because he's a cool character.
Yeah, because I had a neat idea and I fleshed it out really well, and I'm proud of it.
So it's there.
Yeah.
Even if it has nothing to do with the story, it's there. Yep. We can move on to the next one if you'd like to.
Sure.
The next one is titled "Lovin' That Cali Lifestyle." Which,
Completely forget this episode.
so a lot of it is like showing the progression of different things with a bunch of the different characters. But it opens and kind of closes on the whole thing with Hollyhock. It opens with Hollyhock overdosing on drugs, which
Right.
just
When I saw that, like, it was like all wibbly wobbly and she was clear, like panicking,
yeah,
I could have sworn it was just going to be like a mental health thing. Like she was like prone to like panic or anxiety attacks or something like that.
yeah, but nope.
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's intense because like it happens, and that's literally the opening. It happens, um, and then the theme song plays, for the
Mm-hmm.
show. And you're just like, oh shit. um, but yeah, so I'm trying to think what else happens in this episode because it's like I don't think a lot really goes on. It's just it shows more of like the campaign and like just the back and forth between like Jessica
Mm-hmm.
Biel's campaign and Woodchuck's campaign. Um,
And Mr. Peanut Butter attempting to help in his own weird ways.
yes. Also, the whole thing where they they find out that his new hands used to be a murderer's hands, and everybody freaks out.
No, a pedophile murderer.
Oh yeah. Well, if you gotta murder somebody,
No,
no.
pedophile dash murder, pedophile slash murder. Oh no, the way
Oh,
you said slash was scary.
that's that is actually one of my favorite jokes.
Mm-hmm.
He was a pedophile murderer. Well, if you gotta murder somebody, no, not a pedophile dash. No, yeah, not a pedophile dash murderer. Pedophile slash murderer.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Oh no, the way you said slash was scary.
if you gotta murder somebody, I just think that's hilarious. But yeah, and then I love how the whole thing that turns the campaign around is literally just the fact that
Avocados.
Jessica Biel doesn't like avocados.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why does that have anything to do with politics?
Speak California.
But it does. I mean, California elected Arnold Schwarzenegger as governor, so that's true. Which
Yeah,
they made a joke about that in the
yeah.
like first episode, I think it was, because
California loves electing celebrities.
it wasn't
Yeah.
that, but it was Woodchuck. He goes, it's like in the first episode, he's like, I will not have this disgrace on the long line of great governors in the state. A governor who did that. He goes through the pictures. He's like, a governor who did this, a governor who did this, and played Mr. Freeze in a Batman movie.
Right. Right, that was Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, and like the
Chill
picture.
out.
That's a movie we could talk about on here.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my gosh. But it was just funny because it was like the pictures were like it was like a serious picture of each governor, and then the picture of Arnold was like him literally like blue skin like Mr. Freeze, literally like a Mr. Freeze outfit. Like, yeah, that was his official governor picture, was him in a Mr. Freeze outfit for sure when he was governor. Yeah. Also, like, he could have said like anything else. He could have said like, and who played the Terminator or something, like, something that he's like, a little bit more well known for, or more respected for, at least, more respected role. But they had to go with
the worst
they had to go with the worst Batman movie ever made, But
the only thing I know about that movie, I don't even know what specific movie, the story, or its name. I just know that Arnold Schwarzenegger made a ton of cold puns as Mr. Freeze.
Yeah. No, the movie is Batman and Robin. And it's George Clooney plays Batman. George Clooners, No, George Clooney. George Clooners. But yeah, no, it's anyways, back on track, back to the episode we're actually talking about. I just thought that was a funny little joke they did that
Hmm.
we was in the first episode, I think, but we didn't mention. Um, but yeah, so the campaign's going on, and yeah, so that happens. He becomes governor by the end.
Right.
Beyond,
Well, the entire, because it opens with Earl, like the kid overdosing, right?
mhm.
But they kind of like brush it all aside throughout the entire episode until the very end,
Yeah, yeah, they do.
until finally Bojack like realizes she's gone or whatever, like gets notified that she's in the hospital, waits there, and then all of her fathers are suddenly there when he wakes up.
Yeah, and they're just kind of like, yeah, we can't believe this
Hate
happened.
him.
Like, yeah, which makes sense, even though like it wasn't his fault. But that's when he's like so confused. He's like, I didn't give her these drugs. I didn't give her these drugs. You know, it's like for
Hmm.
once, a terrible thing that happened wasn't Bojack's fault. You know, for once he was actually doing good.
Right.
Uh, and then he goes home and realize and finds out
It
that
was
it
his
was
mom.
his mother. Which
Hmm.
there's an interesting thing is this drug that she's drugging her with is supposed to be a weight loss drug.
Hmm.
She's like, oh, it's going to take the pounds right off. And it's an interesting thing as you go on, you realize throughout it, she constantly has these references about how, like, you got to lose some weight, to like Hollyhock and like to like girls you got to lose, you got to get those pounds down, whatever. And if you notice, like, early when it goes back into the next episode and it gets into like her backstory and stuff, that's something her father, I think, used to say to her,
Hmm.
like tell her all the time. So it's like this thing that's ingrained in her brain that like a girl's got to be skinny, girl's got to be, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's this, and that kind of is why she tried to drug Hollyhock for that reason, because it's like supposed to be a weight loss drug, and
Hmm.
and it's kind of like,
It's been, that nail's been hammered so deep that even through all the dementia, it still sticks through.
yeah, 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 exactly. It's kind of, yeah, yeah. It's kind of this terrible thing because it's like, this terrible like societal thing where it's like women have to be skinny, women have to be, like
Hmm.
because
They
of the,
don't, by the way.
yeah,
No.
exactly, because of this stupid like media, the way things are portrayed in the media and stuff, and like, oh, all the models are super skinny and starve themselves, so we
Mm.
got to do it too.
I This is kind of off topic. I remember like a year ago or something that was like Victoria's Secret has their first plus size supermodel, and she was just like a normal person,
You're like,
basically, but like
that's not
slightly skinnier. And everyone's like, shut up. Like, you're
like
not doing anything right now.
that, but that kind of stuff is actually extremely damaging.
Hmm. It's
um
terrible.
this actually causes actual like mental issues
Hmm.
and like anorexia and like terrible things like this. So yeah, it's kind of, yeah, but anyways, we can get back to talking about the episode. That's a whole separate topic, but
Oh, yeah.
but yeah, yeah. Society, stop doing that. That's all I'm gonna say. um
Ah, if only it was that easy.
yeah, I know.
Society should be like a dog. Just tap
No,
it on the
stop
nose,
it.
everyone. Yeah,
Bad
exactly.
society. Stop
Bad.
society. Bad.
No more barking. Stop saying that crap.
Yeah, I know. That would be nice, but
Mm.
it's not how it works. Um, but yeah, so and then it ends with him driving her to this nursing home, and he's like, oh, where's the oh, you want me to give her get? I'll find the first room. Did I say first? Did you think I said first room? No, I said worst room. Like he's
Hmm.
super angry with his mother. Like this is like, it's like he always had this sort of anger towards his mother, but he sort of started to mellow out with her now. Like she's been living with him for a little bit. She has dementia. He's kind of like, all right, it's
Yeah, they were playing
whatever.
Uno in the living room before.
Yeah,
They were
yeah,
fine.
but it's like this one terrible thing she did just kind of brings that back, and it's not even the terrible thing she did to him. It's something she did to Hollyhock, and it's
I
Bojack's just
think
like,
that fact probably makes it worse even.
right, because
It's like
if it
it's
was,
extending past him now.
yeah, because if it was to him, he'd be like, you know what, you've been terrible to me all your life, like
Yeah,
it's
I'm
just
used to it.
it's just another terrible thing to me. But now it's like, no, like it's Hollyhock, and here he was this whole time beating himself up, thinking he's gonna, you know, poison Hollyhock and do all these terrible things
Hmm.
to her. He was like in the stupid piece of shit episode. He says like, your poison is already in her. You're just poisoning her. Like that was some of the things in his monologue, in his inner monologue that he
Hmm.
had. But it's like now it's like, well, turns out she's the one who's literally poisoning her,
Yeah.
like, um, and it's kind of like, and so it's like that kind of just really sets him off, which, understandably so, it's kind of this, um, and it's that plus the pent up, hatred over many years.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, yeah, and to get to that room, and like to add a few more points to your whole argument there, you like the nurse says we keep these blinds down because it looks like the garbage can, and he opens the blinds as soon as she leaves, and he says something, basically, I hope you're happy now. See you never. Bye, mom. And then it just ends with her just saying, Bojack, finally recognizing him.
yeah. Yeah, it's an intense final moment there. Yeah. Which then leads into the next episode, which we can get to now if you're ready for it,
Hmm.
which is the big episode 11. That's always one of the big ones. So yeah, episode 11 is titled Time's Arrow. This one I might want to say this is the best of the season. I don't know. It's up there for sure. It's
Hmm.
definitely one of the big episodes. So,
It's really well done, yeah.
oh my gosh, yeah. It's so basically what the episode is it goes back to when Bojack's taking her to the hospital, taking her to not the hospital, this nursing home, I guess, or whatever,
Mm.
taking her to the nursing home. Um,
And the entire time in her like little demented state, she's
it's
remembering things,
yeah,
imagining things,
yeah,
all these weird
yeah,
scenarios.
yeah. She just starts to have all these little fragmented memories of the
Hmm.
past. And you start to piece together a lot of her past and her story, and when she met his father, and all this kind of crazy stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah, because it's you know it sort of picks up where like the earlier backstory we got left off, which was that backstory focused more on Beatrice's mother, and now it's focusing on her.
Hmm.
Um, and it shows sort of the way she's raised by her father and how that affects, she resents that. She doesn't like being treated like just, I don't know, just a piece of meat that he can sell to other people, kind of, in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he's kind of like, he wants her to get with the Corbin Creamerman because their family owns a big company and he wants to be able to merge the companies, which is like,
Hmm.
not why you should marry somebody. But
Yeah, and oddly enough, by the end of the episode, she's arguing with her actual husband, like, I should have been with Corin Kramer. He would have treated me right, because, like, you see a little bit of him, and
he
he just
actually
seems
was
like
a
an
nice
awkward.
guy.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
just seemed like a bit awkward and,
Yeah.
not exactly
But at the,
interesting, but
right.
still a good
Yeah, a good
person.
guy. Yeah. But at the time, for her, it was like meeting Butterscotch, I think was his name, Butterscotch Horseman. What? Yeah, I know. Love,
Butterscotch.
love the names. There's so many like food names in here,
Yeah.
like peanut butter, but yeah, Butterscotch Horseman. He was more like the person who was more appealing to her right now
Mm-hmm.
because he was just kind of this badass, doesn't conform to society kind of guy.
Yeah.
Um,
The one that would make her father the angriest.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. Because I mean, yeah, she really doesn't like her father. Yeah, but yeah, and then they have a accidental pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And spur of the moment, go to Hollywood, get married.
well, they don't go to Hollywood. They go
Oh,
to
right.
it's California, but it's what is it?
Los Angeles?
No, San Francisco, I think.
Right.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, that's what it was. They go to San Francisco because I think that's like where Bojack grows up because they end up living there. He's working on his novel and stuff. At the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, it seems like they might be kind of good. They're like, there's that moment where they're like, you know what? We'll actually stay together. Yeah, we'll raise this kid. We're gonna have this great family. And he's telling it through like this book. Have you ever heard the story about the couple who went to
Yeah, and they
and
both keep adding on to that.
yeah, and it's
Explaining
actually
that
kind of
it's
a
going to
nice
be
moment, and it's like almost like a nice beginning to their relationship, and you're kind of like, oh wow, but then it's like it all falls apart.
yeah, because the moment that they show it falling apart is baby Bojack crying and them not being able to sleep
and
because of
they're
it.
yeah, and they're
Which,
just
like,
not.
it
Yeah,
portrays, like, the reason why they treat Bojack they do.
yeah,
Because, like, from their perspective, yeah, he ruined their relationship and everything.
and their lives, like they all had these grand hopes and dreams, but then
Mm-hmm.
suddenly they had to raise a baby.
Yeah. But, like, in actuality, it's probably more like, no, you just ran off with the first guy you met, and, that's not a conducive thing to a healthy
Yeah,
relationship that could last as long as you needed to bear a child and
yeah,
raise it.
yeah. I mean, there's always that off chance that a relationship like running off with the first person you meet like that could work out,
Oh, don't
but
don't bet on that.
don't bet
Don't
on it.
bet on
Yeah, it's
that.
usually it's better to take some time to get to know somebody for a little bit before you fully commit. Like
There's 7 billion people in this world. The chances that your first one is going to be the one isn't high.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, exactly. Take the time to build it, to build the relationship before you commit to anything extreme. Um, but yeah, I guess it's like, and then like there's this whole thing where he won't accept a job from her dad's company because
mhm,
he just he doesn't want to make it that way. He's got to work on his novel.
mhm.
If my
And then
novel isn't
this,
good because I forgot what it's like to be working class, that's your fault. Because I forgot what it's like to be poor, that's your fault.
mhm. And then the next thing in the flashback is him going, "Art needs to be rigid and structured, like my book."
Oh yeah. Yep. Um. Yeah. Yeah. I really like how this whole thing is like this whole all these memories and stuff. It's all this like
Mhm.
fragmented pieces. It's just
Yeah, like
I don't
she
know.
can't remember Henrietta's face, so it's all scribbled over all the time.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
like, I remember, I think it was a conversation with her father or something. It's like, I wouldn't be here. Hat in hand, a hat appears in his hand as she remembers that there was a hat in his hand.
Yeah. 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 No, this is one of the best episodes of the show for sure. I don't know. It's just really well done.
Yeah.
Um.
And then
Yeah. And it.
finally it catches up to reality
Yeah.
and she recognizes Bojack.
Yes. Yes.
And she
Well.
starts panicking over where she is. And Bojack tells her a nice story to,
Mhm.
get her to hallucinate something pleasant.
Yeah, that was actually a really nice moment. It's like he
Yeah.
kind of, but after all that like huge burst of anger where he just hates her, he just takes a second to kind of like think about it and just go, you know what? Like she's probably only got like a few years left anyways. Like
Yeah.
just let her, do what I can to make her at least a little happy. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. But no, this is where you fully realize the truth that Hollyhock is not
Right.
Bojack's daughter, but is his sister, his
Mm-hmm.
dad's daughter, who,
Stepsister, yeah.
yeah, well, no, half sister.
Half. Right.
Yeah,
Step was married
because
and
it's because they
half
have
was
the yeah because
half
they
blood related. Okay.
yeah because they have the same father but not the same mother. Yeah, so
Right.
half siblings. Um, because they show these like flashbacks in it, and they actually do a really cool way of like how they intercut the birth of Bojack alongside the birth of Hollyhock.
Mm-hmm.
You know, despite the fact that their births were like many years apart, obviously, because Hollyhock's only like 17.
Mm.
um, yeah, no, it's like that moment where you realize that it's kind of because you know the whole season you're just like, yep, it's there. You know,
Right.
it's Bojack's daughter. It's Bojack's daughter. Then suddenly you're like, oh,
Because, like, they even mentioned that the test was positive, their DNA
yeah.
test.
But that just means that they are related. It
Mm.
doesn't mean that they're necessarily father and daughter. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
DNA tests are kind of weird like that, where
Yeah, they bring it up in the next episode using, what was it, O.J.
Bojack.
Simmons?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Showing the horsing around episode
Yeah.
where it's
Like,
like,
there was
so.
a Simmons DNA on the crime scene. But was that Mr. O.J. Simmons? Or was that his brother or his uncle or
Oh
whoever?
my gosh. That was actually kind of funny. Yeah,
I
that
don't
is
know the details of that case at all, by the way.
yeah. Yes. Um,
I just know
oh,
something happened and I don't remember what.
I don't really know, but yeah. Um, but no, one thing I really like about the episode though is there's that part like so there's this they at the beginning of the episode they bring up the whole thing where he's like she's like sick or whatever and he's going to take the doll away and then at the end it shows him taking it and like burning it and everything. And it's like
Mm,
it's and she's like I need my where's my baby? Where's my baby? You know, which is something she was saying earlier in the
mm-hmm,
season in the one episode where they gave her the baby doll. She's like, I need my baby. Where's my baby? And then it also intercuts that with Henrietta going like, I want to see my baby. I want to hold my baby as she's
mm,
taking Hollyhock away from her.
yeah.
It just kind of like plays all these sort of things.
And the line that her father said during all this, someday you'll look back on these and you'll be,
It'll
happy,
be
funny memories. Lo and behold, they're not. They're traumatizing.
traumatizing memories. Yeah. Well, her
Even,
dad was just terrible.
yeah.
Just,
Oh, yeah.
just terrible. Um, but and then he has that line. He's just like, you know what we say about crying? Crying is stupid. Like he's very like emotions are bad. Don't have emotions
Ugh.
kind of person, which is just the worst.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, which I mean, you already saw that before with his wife. You know, like he's just kind of like couldn't deal with her emotions, so instead decided to get rid of her emotions altogether.
Yeah.
Um,
A lobotomy.
Great idea. Um,
I can't say the word lobotomy or think about it without thinking about the DLC to the Fallout New Vegas, where you get a lobotomy, but you still walk around, and then you find and talk to your brain, and it basically hates you because you're an idiot for
uh,
most of the time, even if
okay,
your stats are really good and everything in intelligence.
yeah.
It's funny.
Interesting. But yeah, no, this is a really good episode.
Yeah,
I don't know if I have a lot more to say about it though, but yeah, it's kind
it's
of
well done and kind of trippy.
well, it's kind of that thing where it's like the whole show you're like, yep, he had bad parents, he had a sucky, childhood, bad parents. Okay, cool.
Mm.
now you're like, let's actually take a step back and look at that, the history of
Yeah.
his parents.
Why were his parents bad? Well, his parents are bad because their parents are bad too.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh
Like,
God, how deep does this go?
yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, because you see, oh, Bojack's a bad person because he had bad parents. Oh, well, why are they bad people? Because they had bad parents.
Hmm.
It's just this kind of never-ending cycle of like, just
It's just,
terribleness.
yeah,
Because I mean,
mega terribleness.
if you compare like Bojack to Hollyhock, for instance, they are siblings, technically half siblings.
Hmm.
But Hollyhock sort of doesn't have that sort of same terribleness that Bojack does because
She
she
had
was
8 decent dads, yeah.
raised in a great, loving, caring environment with eight dads. Yeah.
Hmm.
um. So yeah. We can move on to the last episode if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the last episode of the season is called "What Time Is It Right Now?"
All right. There's a
Be
whole plot with that movie.
or
Oh, Philip movie.
it's a TV show,
Oh,
not a
it's a
movie.
TV
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. Filbert.
Filbert. Damn.
Um. Well, yeah, because Princess Carolyn, they say like we're only going to do it if if Bojack's involved, and so she
Mm-hmm.
forges his signature, but she's like worried. She's like, can I actually get him involved? Throughout a lot of the episode, which actually kind of that whole plot ends with a really cool moment where she goes to Bojack. She's like, well, there's a show. She's like trying to convince him. And, Bojack, normal Bojack would be like, I don't know. That sounds stupid. I don't know. But like, this time, he's just like, I'll do it.
Yeah.
He's
You've
like,
done so much for me. I'll do it.
yeah. He's like, I don't care. I'll do it. I don't care what the show is. I'll do it.
It'll
He's
be
just kind of
nice to
like,
get out of the house. That's what
yeah.
he says.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're just kind of like, oh, like Bojack really is has kind of
Yeah.
changed, and you're
He's
like, he
taking
is
steps. He's on
kind
an
of,
upturn.
yeah, it's really nice like moment, and yeah, yeah, there's that. I'm trying to remember what else happened. Yeah, because Princess Carolyn really wants to do Filbert because the name was the name that she was gonna name her kid that
Right.
was she had a miscarriage, but turns
There's
out this
Todd
guy,
at some point released his clowns into the woods, and
yeah,
then they got rabies. And now he and the one lady use them as motivation for workout, like joggers to jog. It's like, oh, there's no
now
excuse anymore because I will
that's
die
their
if I don't
business.
run.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Now
then
that's their new business. They
that
really
weird
did
lizard
create a better
fish
business.
lady like asks him out and was like, yeah, I'm asexual too. That's why I'm asking you out. I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
which is a nice way to sort of tie up that whole thing with Todd in this, at least for this season.
Hmm.
It's explored a little bit more later on, but yeah, it's a nice little thing. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think of like what else happens. Yeah, I mean, it's the final episode, so it's kind of the wrapping everything up episode.
Hmm.
Um, actually, so this one, there's some stuff with no, not Princess Carolyn. We already talked about that. She gets the Filbert show. No, Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter.
Right.
So they're like, campaign's over and everything. They're just kind of like, we're going back to our normal life. Here we go. They decide, well, let's go to Hawaii because they built the bridge to Hawaii.
Hmm. Right. That I love that vague explanation of like amendments and stuff, or writing in laws. It's like, oh, I want this one very specific thing to go through, but no one's going to sign on that. What do I do? Well, if you sign on this, it also actually does this one very specific thing that you happen to want, and
Yeah.
now you will sign on it.
Yeah. I'd like a bridge to Hawaii. Oh yeah, we'll put that in the bill. Okay, now you'll sign on for this, just
And
to get a
none of
different
these
bill
things
signed.
have yeah, any relation to each other.
Yeah. It's
But
like
yeah,
that's how
they
they
can do
get the
that.
bill passed.
They can do that.
Yeah, that
Oh
was
god.
like I think that was like the first episode that they did that. Yeah, the first episode of the season. Yeah,
Oh right, because that was about skiing. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's how they got the ski amendment passed.
Mm.
Um, but yeah. So and this is they kind of have some little moments with their relationship here. They actually have a few nice moments, and they talk and she tells him about how she always wanted a bell room.
Mm.
Um, which was not a ballroom, a bell room, which is like the library in Beauty and the Beast, but she always called it
Yeah.
a bell room, and whatever.
And that made it unique to her. Yeah.
Yeah. So they go back to the house. It turns out he had one built for her, which kind of makes her a little mad for a second again, because she's like, I didn't actually want you to build one. And he's just kind
Mm-hmm.
of like, which is really sad because it's kind of this thing where he's thinking in his head, he's like, oh, I'm finally doing something specific for her so that I know she'll like,
Yeah.
and it kind of backfires. Um, and he has that one line where he's like, she's like, why is it so important for you to like specifically put things in the house that are like specific for me, and just like,
Surprise her all the time but she doesn't like these big surprise gestures.
yeah. But no, but like there's the thing where she's like, why do you want our new house? Because they have to build a new house because the other one was destroyed. Why do you want this new house to have a lot of things that are specifically for like me? Like, why does it matter so much to you? He's like, because I want it to feel like our house. He's like, I don't want you to feel like a guest. Like, I don't want it to feel
Mm-hmm.
like you're just a guest in my house, like that, like it did with my last wives. Um, and it's kind of it ends on kind of a sad moment actually,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they're like talking about it, and she has that line where she's like, sometimes I think our relationship is like whatever, like you, it's kind of hard, it's and messy, but when you
Magic eye poster.
yeah, magic eye poster, but when you squint and look at it just right, it's the most beautiful thing ever. He's just like, yeah. She's like, and then she breaks down crying, I'm so tired of squinting. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like the final moment with those characters in this season. you know it's just kind of interesting because, like, I mean, you said before, like, this is kind of the more upbeat one where things start to get a little bit more, it ends on a happier note, yet there's still somewhere where there's characters that don't end on a happy note.
Mm-hmm.
um so it's just kind of, yeah, which is kind of sad too, because throughout earlier in the episode, they had a few really good moments where you kind of saw like why their relationship works, or like you saw, oh, this is why they are good together, and then
Mm-hmm.
they do have these sweet moments, but then it's like the sweet moments are too far apart from each other almost, like there's more bad moments than good, so it's almost
Yeah, I guess
too
so, yeah.
too difficult to fight for the good moments when there's not enough of them, kind of. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting. But yeah, so that's kind of where they're left at the end of this season. I don't know.
And finally, Bojack realizes from, watching horsing around and that DNA test bit, he goes, oh, maybe I'm not her father. And goes on this whole wild goose chase, finds her real mother, that's Henrietta,
Yep.
gets her number, and takes it to the Eight Fathers.
Yeah, and I love that moment where he's just kind of like, they're like, oh, we don't want you to see her. He's like, I don't care. You don't even have to tell her I did this. I just did it for her.
Hmm.
I didn't do it to make myself look good. I didn't do it to gain, favor with her. I just did it for her, just
Yeah.
to do something nice for her, which is kind of a really nice moment for him. I really like that. Like you really do see that he really does care about her. He really did kind of build a strong bond with her and actually like,
Mhm.
yeah, which is really nice
And
to
then
see.
they start talking gibberish around him, which apparently is their secret dad language.
Oh yeah, when he calls her, he's just like, yeah, they have this secret dad language. They think that I don't understand what they're saying, but it's totally obvious what they're saying.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, this was the episode, I think, or maybe it was this. Yeah, it was this. This is the episode where the guy's like, I don't watch. I don't like foreign movies. I like foreign films.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
I don't know. Okay, well, didn't he say something after like, okay, you're impossible, but the
yeah,
rest of you, like, just
yeah,
immediately
he did.
brushes past it?
He's just kind of like, oh my gosh.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah, that's an appropriate response. Like, okay, I'm not dealing with you anymore. You're
you're
not gonna make this
ridiculous.
easy for me.
Uh, it's funny. Like I just find that little character bit just really funny because like
Mhm.
you like I've seen and like people who are like that. Like I've known like or like known of people who are like actually like that.
Mhm.
Like I don't like movies. I like films.
Oh, it's fancier.
It's I like real art. Okay, not those superheroes or whatever you like. You know. um, but yeah, so I really like the ending moment though, where he's talking to her Hollyhock on the phone, and he's just like, she's like, yeah, and she's like, I told you I didn't need you to be my dad, and he's like, yeah, yeah, that's right, yeah, and then she goes, but I've never had a brother, and
Mhm.
he's just like,
And music starts, and there's just this moment of him just smiling, and they cut.
yeah,
And it's so nice.
like it's a moment that's nice enough to where you could probably end the whole show there, and it'd be like a good, like a nice kind of like, yeah,
Hmm.
like this could be the last seat. Well, I mean, Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter's relationship is a little rocky at the end, but besides that, but for the character of Bojack, like you could end it there and be like done. But
Hmm.
they do continue, but it is good continuing. I do like the seasons after this. I just think season 4 is just to me is like probably my favorite. I just think
Yeah, because it's not completely depressing and terrible.
yeah, not even just that. I think there's just certain episodes that I just really like. Like I love the sort of getting into the backstory with his mother and everything. I think that was
Hmm.
all really well. Like both of the episodes that kind of do that. So like the second episode of the season and the second to last episode, the 11th episode of the season are really good. And then I really, really like the episode 6, Stupid Piece of Shit. Like I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
that whole inner monologue that he has is just, like they just it's done so well. Like
Hmm.
I just think there's a few like really strong episodes in this season. The rest of the episodes are still good. Um, they're just like we've said before. They're like they progress the plot. They have some fun moments, funny moments, but they're not like as strong. But they're still good. Um, yeah, overall, really good season. And I think you even said that you thought it was your favorite season so far.
Well, it's because it's just not as depressing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, I think when I first watched the show, this was the only this was the last season that was out.
Mm.
So my first experience watching the show was season 1 through 4. So to me, at the beginning, my first experience, this was the last season for me.
Uh,
So it was kind of like, and then when the other seasons came out, they were like almost like an addition to what I'd already
that's a
seen.
lucky. That's a lucky. I've like read mangas that I've gotten through like 80 chapters on and been like, oh, this is the last chapter that is translated, and it's also terrible and heart wrenching. Haha, now you need to wait a week until you get the rest of it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, with this, it was you had to wait a year because it's like
Right.
what it would be one season every year, typically, and then yeah. But the seasons would come out all at once though on Netflix. It wasn't like one episode at a time, like what Disney Plus is doing with their shows, kind of.
Stupid.
Except for the last season, season
6.
6 came out in
They
2
did
parts.
half. Yeah.
Yeah. But which that's the way we're going to do it too, because talking about a 16 episode season in one podcast is just too much. But yeah, so anyways, do you have much else to say about this season?
No, I don't think I do.
Yeah. Really solid season. We're going to continue talking about Bojack Horseman with season 5 in 2 weeks. But next week, we're going to do a movie discussion. So we had talked about this a little bit beforehand, and we're thinking we have a few options that we were going through. We're thinking about possibly going through the Terminator movies.
Only the first 2, right? Because you said those are the only good ones, probably.
From what I know, from what I've heard, those are the only good ones. Like
right.
Everybody always says, like, just stop after 2. Stop. Just don't go any further.
The rest are just like comedically terrible, right?
What's that?
Are the rest just like comedically terrible, or
I don't know if it's comedically terrible. They're just not good, I guess. I don't know. They just, I don't know. But anyways, so we could either split it up and do the first one next week and then the second one 2 weeks after that, or we could do both in one. We've done 3 in 1 once with Lord of the Rings, so it's not completely unreasonable. But
how long are the 2 of them?
I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty sure they're like average length movies. I'm actually looking at
because I have first one is 1:48.
Okay. Second one's probably not that much longer. Maybe longer. I don't know.
2:36 apparently.
Oh, so it's quite a bit longer. The second one. I mean, what do you think? Because we could do that, so we're not like stuck on the same series for 2 movie discussions in a row, or we could.
Yeah, let's do both. Why
do not? Both. Okay. So we're going to talk about the Terminator and Terminator 2. It's Judgment Day, right? That's what's called. Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Next week. So we're going to talk about the first 2 Terminator movies next week. And the week after that, we are going to talk about Bojack Horseman season 5. So yeah. That's about all. So thank you for listening to the WABAN podcast, wherever you're listening to it on. There are multiple places you could listen to it. It is available on my YouTube channel, which is called Nim TV. That's NIM TV. Just search that on YouTube. You should be able to find the channel. And it is actually on my YouTube channel. It's separated into different playlists. So you have a playlist specifically for Bojack Horseman reviews, one for Avatar, The Last Airbender reviews, one for guest episodes, and one specifically for movie discussions. So it's, if you want to separate it out like that. I couldn't figure out ways to do that on the audio platforms, so it's not done that way. But you can see the titles at least and kind of figure it out yourself. So it's available on multiple audio platforms, including Anchor, Breaker, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can find the WABAN podcast anywhere there. So yeah, just search WABAN on any of those. You should probably be able to find it. There's a new episode of WABAN every Saturday at noon Eastern Standard Time. EST. That's the time zone. Yeah, so anyways, that's about all for this week. Thank you for listening. I've been Nim.
I'm the goodest boy. It's nearly midnight.
Yes, it is nearly midnight. Good night. Good night, everyone.
I'm tired.
Me too. Goodbye.